Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I am your host, your coach, Karina Calhoun. I am your expert life strategist. Listen, for this particular episode, I am sharing with you a previously recorded episode with a woman who I believe is really truly paving the way, making major impact in the world, who I want to honor and highlight for Women's History Month. Certainly, this is not the only woman. These women that I am honoring this month are not the only women, but they are a few that I absolutely wanted to highlight because of certain things that I know that they're doing in the communities around them, how they're loving on the world around them. So I want to share them with you. And please feel free to reach out to each and every one of them. Feel free to share the impact that they're making in the world. Please feel free to amplify them and their message and their purpose in the earth. And absolutely do not forget to go be great. I love you all. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Go Be Great with Coach Karina. I am your host, your mindset and life coach, Coach Karina Calhoun. And we have another amazing, awesome episode today. And so today I have on the show Martha Van Dam. And listen, you all know I say this all the time that I am thrilled to have the guests that are on the show. I just want to give you all a little bit of background information. When guests approach me or I approach guests about being on the show, we don't typically do a pre-show interview, but I do look at what they have to offer. So when I say I am thrilled to have someone on the show, I'm not just saying it because I don't even do a recording unless I'm thrilled to be talking with them. And I'm thrilled today to be talking to Martha. Martha, how are you today and where in the world are you?
I'm wonderful and I'm excited because I'm excited to be here. And as I said a minute ago, I'm a little bit nervous because I know this is being recorded, but where you will find me is my office is in a little town called Mariester, Florida. I'm up in the Panhandle, and it's hot here and humid, and that's where I am.
Awesome. I love it. I have not been that far uh, into Florida. I have been to, and this was, I don't even remember exactly where it was. I was a teenager. We went when I was really, pretty young, but I just remember having having fun, but not remembering too much more outside of that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would absolutely love to get to Florida to visit and actually have a cup of coffee with you.
Well, you
I
just
I
need
am
to come. You need to come. I've got an extra bedroom. We could you just come and visit, have a weekend, and we'll have a fun time.
absolutely. I'm going to take you up on that offer. So Martha, I am really intrigued by the topic that you're going to be talking about today. And just to give everyone a little background information, Martha and I met on LinkedIn. And for those of you that know, I have really been leaning into networking with people who are absolutely making a difference in the world, who are bringing their gifts, the calling that they have, they're bringing that to the world to make the world that they occupy better. And so Martha and I met on LinkedIn, and we immediately had the most authentic conversation. It was not about me pitching to her or her pitching to me. We literally just had a conversation almost as if we had known each other for years and we were just picking up a conversation. Martha, what do you think about that? What were your thoughts, during that initial conversation?
It was pretty amazing how that worked out. And as you're saying it just now, it made me think, okay, it's because we're two women and we started talking over just common ground, part business common ground, and then just part the fact that as women, we have some things that are the same that we all
Mhm.
deal with. And of course, this topic is about this type of breast cancer. Well, every woman on the planet is at least at risk for developing breast cancer because we're women and because we have breasts and
Mhm.
because it's the genetics.
Mhm.
So we immediately, I think, and I also think we bonded over a little bit of understanding of this is not okay for this particular type of cancer for us not to get the knowledge out to women. Women need to know. And I think we both felt strongly about, yeah, women need to know about this.
And, one thing, I don't remember if I disclosed this to you at that time, but, and I understand that this is a different dynamic, but my dad passed of cancer, prostate cancer, back in 2018. And so, just knowing someone that close to me that did, pass from a disease, a cancerous disease, especially something that attacks a specific gender, that just kind of like stopped me in my tracks. But then to say, okay, but Karina, this is something, and we're going to talk to you all about this. We're going to open up a little bit more about this. And Martha, I'm just going to let Martha have the floor, because this is not something that I am well versed in, but it is something that I am absolutely adamant that it gets out there. But getting back to the point, when you talk about that common ground, this was something, as you said, we're both women. Now, I didn't have necessarily a full-blown breast cancer scare back in 2019, but I did have a situation where a lump was found. I did have to have it removed, and it was tested. It was tested as non-cancerous. So when you say these things, like I said, my dad having passed from a cancer that specific to gender, but then me having to have a lump removed, so these things really open up your perspective in a completely different way. So Martha, let's just go ahead and talk about what is this cancer, this breast cancer that you have been advocating for women for, because it's not normal. It's not something that you hear about. I had never heard about it before you brought it to my attention. So I really want those, whether you're a man or a woman listening to the show, a woman if you're a man. So, let's dive in, Martha. Let's talk about it.
Sure. And already I need to give one little caveat, and that is that men can get this too, just like men can get regular breast cancer. Now, clearly it's not going to hit as many men as it does women, any type of breast cancer. And so for a man to have breast cancer, that is rare. Then for a man to have what this is, which is inflammatory breast cancer, is all the more rare, but it still does happen to them. And as you said, every man on the planet knows a woman. So if he knows a woman or cares for a woman, then the women that he loves are at risk. So thank you first for giving me this platform. I'm just so excited to be able to have the chance to speak to women, to any woman that's listening about this. We don't know, we're not being told that there is a type of cancer. It's called inflammatory breast cancer. And the reason it's called inflammatory is because the cancer itself begins to live in the skin and it causes this inflammation. And what we tend to understand, and to a degree this is true, it's just not the whole truth. We tend to understand that breast cancer comes with lumps, that you could catch it on a mammogram. Well, inflammatory breast cancer is different, and this is why it's so important for us to know. 90% of inflammatory breast cancer cases do not start with a lump, or they don't ever have a lump. And so that business of do your self checks, yes, we want to do our self checks, but that's not enough. Inflammatory breast cancer tends to show up with a change in the breast. And I'm just going to list off some things that often happen, but very often it's not, you don't get all of these symptoms. So like a pink, when I had it, I just looked down one morning when I was getting dressed and saw a pinkness. The underside of my breast was pink, and it was a light pink. It wasn't like dark. It really was like I'd been outside in the sun a little bit. And I promise you, I hadn't been outside naked in the sun to get sun on my boob, right? And but that's all that showed up. Some women end up with a real swollen breast, or the skin gets real tight to the point that it has little, they call it peau d'orange, skin, it means skin of orange. Orange skin has those little dimples all in it. That can happen to a woman's breast. The nipple can get inverted a little bit, or it can begin to ooze. It can itch, it can burn, it can easily get bruised. So and very, very often it's mistaken early on for a mastitis.
Mm.
This particular cancer is bad to hit women when they are when they're pregnant or they've just delivered, when the hormones are really high. And so since very often women have just been nursing or they're nursing, the doctors immediately will look at it, it's swollen, it's red, it's hot, put you on antibiotics and send you home. And the really frightening thing I think I mentioned to you the other day is the researchers do not know what inflammatory breast cancer looks like at stage 1 or at stage 2. It is
Wow.
unrecognizable until stage 3B. And it also is one of the fastest growing of all the breast cancers. So it is so important to try to catch it at that stage 3, because stage 3 is the difference. Stage 3 and 4, that's the difference between prognosis, treatments. Once you're in stage 3, it's considered that you're going to deal with that for the rest of your life. I mean, once you're stage 4, at stage 4, you're going to deal with it for the rest of your life. At stage 3, you have a chance of maybe being what they call no evidence of disease, which means they've treated it well enough, they've pushed it back far enough, and nothing in your body shows it at that point.
Wow. So you've mentioned that you found it and it was a light pink color. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about your specific experience, because sometimes you have advocates that, like in my case, if I were to advocate for prostate cancer, of course, I've never had it. It's because someone I love had it.
Sure.
But you've actually experienced this. So let's talk about from when you woke up that morning and noticed it, and then, take us through that entire situation.
All right. So I did wake up. Like I said, I was getting dressed. I looked down, and coming up from the underside of my one breast was this pink color. I noticed it and I didn't think much of it at first. It just was a little different color, but not that big of a deal. That night, when I got changed again, I undressed and looked, and it was still there. And all of a sudden, a memory came to my mind. I remembered, because I'd heard this years ago, there is a type of breast cancer that shows up like a rash. This moment is what's so important. And this is what I want to get out. I'm so thankful that you're sharing. If I hadn't known that, I might not have taken it as seriously as I did. So that Friday evening, when I was getting undressed and I saw it again and realized, oh my goodness, could it be that other type of breast cancer that I have heard about? And I went to Dr. Google, which of course I shouldn't have done, because, you find out all kinds of scary things. I say I shouldn't have, but then I also found out enough to tell me, yeah, take this seriously. Monday morning, I called my doctor and said to her, I need to get in. I need to get checked. I think I might have inflammatory breast cancer. I mean, I just laid it out. Then when I called her, she got me in immediately for an ultrasound and mammogram. And of course, the issue is that inflammatory breast cancer doesn't show up on a mammogram. So actually, when I went in a few days later, after we got the appointment, I went in and had the mammogram. By this point in time, I knew a lot. And when that mammogram came up as clear, I knew I was in trouble. It was the strangest thing. It didn't settle me. It was like, oh no, that's bad, because inflammatory doesn't show up on the mammogram. What they did find was they found a lump under my arm in the lymph node. By stage 3, it had traveled outside the breast, and it was close by. It was in the lymph node. And inflammatory breast cancer almost always goes to the lymph nodes. So they scheduled, the only way then to really check further is they scheduled a MRI and then scheduled surgical biopsies, which is when they do put you to sleep. They went in, they took out the lump under my arm, and they take a little slice out of the pink part of the breast. And that was on a Thursday, and a Monday when I went back, they had just found out that, that's one of those things you don't ever forget when the doctor says it is malignant. That goes into you like a hot knife of some sort. And within a week, they were hopping then when they realized what it was, because this is when I say time is of the essence. In some breast cancers, they'll tell you it's a slow moving cancer. You don't have to worry about it. Even my gynecologist had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was right before she was going to take a family vacation on a cruise, and they had just all went on the cruise anyway. Well, you
Mhm.
can do that with certain types of cancers that are slow growing, but with cancers that are fast growing, you don't have time.
Mhm.
And so within a week, they were doing a surgical procedure to put in a little port so that all my chemo could go through the port. And a few days after that, I was starting treatment. And so treatment for inflammatory breast cancer is always, and this can be a place if the doctors don't know what they're doing, this can create trouble. But it always, best treatment is your chemotherapy first, and then surgery, and then radiation.
Mhm.
At least for stage 3, it's always in that order. I guess another thing that women need to understand is that doctors aren't really well versed on it because it's
Mhm.
not. So they say 1 to 4% of all breast cancers are inflammatory breast cancer. The issue with coming up with a number like that is that, like other diseases get an ICD-10 code that's how they
Mhm.
code all the diseases. You know, you go to the doctor, you get strep throat, they put a little code down for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then if you or I, as a researcher, we want to go in to research how many people in Florida or Texas or Virginia are having strep throat, we just punch in that code and we get all kinds of numbers. Inflammatory breast cancer does not have its own code. It just gets coded as a breast cancer. And then the doctor has to later in notes note that it was inflammatory in type. But if you and I want to figure out what are the numbers, are they different in different parts of the country? It's a lot harder to track because there's no code. So when we
Wow.
say it's 1 to 4%, okay, maybe, but maybe it's actually more than that. I know 4 other women in my little area, my little town, that have had it.
Mm.
Not a big town.
Mm.
So who knows? Another issue is, since it's considered to be a cancer that doesn't happen as frequently, then it doesn't get the research dollars.
Mhm.
So that makes it harder to gain more information because there's not the research dollars there.
Mhm.
So it's not taught real well in medical schools. My understanding is in the medical books, there's like about a paragraph on inflammatory breast cancer. The doctors have a lot going on. They're not going to remember that one paragraph real well unless they've come upon it in other circumstances.
Mhm.
So I guess a piece of this is my message to women is, if there's something going on with your breast, something changes, something doesn't feel right, get to a doctor. And
Mhm.
if your answer isn't really, really solid and you don't feel really good about it and you still iffy about, yeah, this just doesn't feel right, keep pushing until you get answers that are solid.
So, Martha, let me ask you this question. If someone, they see that there is a change in their breast, one or both, um, and they reach out to their physician and say, hey, I'd like to be seen and get this tested, but then they're given some type of maybe antibiotic, something of that nature, and then sent on their way, what are the steps that they would need to take to push back? And one of the reasons why I want to really bring this to the forefront, and you and I talked about this, is that there is, this is widely known that there are disparaging numbers when it comes to women of color
Mm-hmm.
being treated medically. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to make sure we have a step-by-step framework of what really needs to be done so that you are your best advocate when you go to that physician, if for whatever reason you are in an area that you experience this. And and certainly this is not just for women of color, but we still want to make sure we identify that as an issue in this so that we don't just look and say, oh, it's a rash, oh, it'll go away, or I went to the doctor and they said, no, it's okay. And then you find out weeks later that, it's actually
There's no,
detrimental.
yeah, yeah. And you and I talked about this the other day. Yes, women of color have disproportionate numbers of breast cancer and less good results, but also women of color have higher than white women this diagnosis. So it's in the percentage wise. So it is very serious for Black women, women of color to understand. And I don't know if it has anything to do, I don't understand the science of it. I don't know if it's a thing that has to do with actual genetics and history. I don't know if it's because the skin itself is somehow, it's more difficult to see a slight shift in color if the skin is darker. I don't know, but I know it's serious. So I would say the number one thing is, we as women have got to be able, when we question something, to dig in inside and grab some strength from inside and speak what we're questioning. Not just say, so the doctor says, honey, we're just going to give you an antibiotic. This will be okay. I've seen this a million times. You'll be all right. If inside we're feeling like, I don't feel good about this, I want more of an answer, then we push back. We don't have to be, I don't want to say ugly word. We don't have to be ugly about it, but we can say, we can push. We can say, I really don't want to leave it like this. I really want to test a little further. I've got children at home. I've got whatever is the reason. We don't even have to give a reason, but we want to be able to dig in and say, please, I want to do some more. What's the next step? And if that doctor will not, there are other doctors out there that will.
Yeah, and then that's when you absolutely get ugly, if you have to, because it's your life at stake.
Well, that's right.
And that's the thing. And I'm glad you said that you really don't have to give a reason other than this is your life. And if no one else will advocate for you, you have to advocate for yourself. And so I'm really thankful that you have brought this to the forefront, because when I think about, I've sat and I've thought about this, sometimes you may not see that discoloration because of the melanin in our skin. So you may not know. It could be anything. It could be any reason, any number of reasons why this information is not out there so readily. You see a lot of the pink ribbons. Yes. But when do we see the ribbon for this particular?
Right. It actually has one. It actually does have a ribbon, but you're right. We don't see it.
What color is that?
It's a peach, and it's a couple colors, peach and pink together. And I think it's got a little line of black around one side to represent the women who have died.
Gotcha. See, and I've never seen that. So that right there, I mean, we really need to get this topic out there. So what are some, so you talked about, because there's just so many questions in my head, and just so that you all know, well, first, this is really a first for me on this show. I am literally processing so many questions, so many thoughts right now. It's almost as if I don't even know what direction to go in, because I feel so strongly. Not that I've not felt strongly about other episodes, but this is something that could save people's lives.
Absolutely, it can. Let me tell you, I have one idea that I think might be helpful. I would like it if you and anybody listening would go online. There's a website that shows pictures, honest photographs of women's breasts with different people with however it showed up. It's called ibcnetwork.org. IBC for inflammatory breast cancer, ibcnetwork.org. If you'll go on that website, there's a section on there with pictures, or you can just Google inflammatory breast cancer photos, and you will get pictures. What's important to remember is that where one woman's breast may be swollen, another woman's breast may be red, and another woman's breast, the nipple may be inverted. So we don't look at them, at any of them, and think, oh, if it's not an inverted nipple, it's not that. Mine never got inverted. I didn't end up a lot with that peau d'orange skin. I did end up with heavy, I realized pretty early on that one breast feels heavier than the other one, and it was a little larger, so it was swollen. So, but I think that would be helpful if we had more of the pictures in our head of what this actually can look like. Therefore, if it happens to us, we're not so caught off guard. I noticed this in my own, when I would go to get the radiation and then the radiation checks afterwards, big sign on the wall, what to check for, to watch for breast cancer. And it's not these symptoms. It's the lump mostly. And so, and I will in October, we'll have breast cancer awareness. Watch for the things that you see that tell us what to look for. You won't see a lot of these things that I'm telling you. The change, the redness, the inverted nipple, the leaking. You won't see that listed in the lists of things to look for too often. Itchy, hurt, painful, bruise easily. So we need, if we have those in our head, then if it happens to us, we're more likely to go, wait, could it be? And we're more likely to get in. And then if we have an idea that this exists and it needs to be taken seriously, then if we get pushed to the side, we're a lot more likely to go, no, no.
Yeah.
I need to.
And the thing is that there has to be more education around this, because you're absolutely right. When you look at those signs in the offices, they don't have this up there. And so it would be so easy, just some of the things that you've named. I mean, when you think about women who have menstrual cycles, sometimes the breasts do become sore.
Right.
They do become heavy. They become tender, these different things. And so you could very well just say, oh, it's nothing. It's just that,
right.
And so, yeah, but if it goes longer than what it normally does, then you need to get this checked out.
Exactly.
So there's certain things that we really need to be cognizant of. And so I am linking arms with you, Martha, to really get this out there, to make this an awareness for women of all colors, and ensure that we have this on the forefront. I think one of the things that's really jarring for me is that there are no accurate numbers.
Sure.
Because of the process or the lack of process behind all of it, the ICD codes. I'm familiar with those types of things. And so I am really adamant to get this out there. And so you all will be hearing more about this on the show. There's always, most people and most businesses have something that they advocate for. And I believe that this is something that we here at War Cry Consulting Solutions, Go Be Great Radio, will be advocating for, because we need to make sure this is known. Absolutely, this is known.
We do. To throw one more piece of the story in, you asked about my treatment. Since I knew that it was rare, I decided I wanted to go to a major teaching hospital to have my surgery, because I thought I'll have the best chance of having a surgeon who is aware of this. And I ended up going to, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to do this, but I ended up going to a major teaching hospital in the South, and their head breast surgeon, who tried to get me to have a treatment that would have been bad for my health. She clearly did not fully, she hadn't been fully trained. One of the things that is, I told you the other day, is absolutely imperative, is that you don't do reconstruction on the table. You have to take as much skin as possible, because the cancer's in the skin. They've got to get it flat. They cannot stretch out that tissue. They can't leave tissue there. They've got to, and they can't even leave enough there to put in an implant and stretch it later, because they've got to get that tissue. Well, she really pushed me to get reconstruction on the table. Thankfully, I'd been in touch with people who understood this. I'd been in touch with people out at MD Anderson who had said, no, that's a life or death thing. That's a major faux pas. And I cannot tell you how difficult it was. And sometimes I think of myself as a strong person. Sometimes I think I'm not. I'm just a mom. I'm just a wife. I'm just, I'm not that, there's nothing special. But my word, I cannot tell you how difficult it was to stand up to that surgeon and tell her, I won't be doing this. She kind of made a little, when I said that I would not be getting reconstruction, she said to me, you're going to be lopsided, as though I hadn't thought about that, and wept bitter tears over that. And so to feel like I had to stand up to the surgeon to get the surgery that was best for me. And then ever since then, I've always thought, did she take it seriously? Did she do the job that she really needed to do? And I don't know, because I'm not a surgeon. I couldn't get inside there, right? But it took, I don't know where the strength came from, but just to stand up to her on several occasions. There were every time I left her office, I left in tears. because I was already upset with what was having to happen anyway, and I was having to fight to get it done and get it done correctly. So, so there are 3 that I know of major hospitals in our country that do tons of research on IBC. And they are the best places to go for questions, or even if you can go get treatment. One, of course, is MD Anderson. Everybody's heard of MD Anderson out in Houston, but they have a designated IBC clinic where research and treatment is done. They do it at Dana-Farber in Boston, and they do it at Duke in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So any of those, and I was in touch with people at MD Anderson. I knew what the protocol was that needed to be for treatment. My doctors went along with exactly that protocol, so I knew I was in good hands. I did not go out to MD Anderson. If it should come back, I will be going out to MD Anderson, because they're just the best. But if I were going to do anything differently, and this is odd to say, I absolutely love my treatment. I love my doctors. I'm sure they saved my life. Looking back, if I were going to do anything, I would have found a way to get out to MD Anderson, just because then I know that nothing could have gotten past them. So, and I understand too that not everybody has that kind of accessibility, but we can pick up the phone, we can get online, and we can research. All that information's out there. The MD Anderson information is out there of best practices and good protocol.
Yeah, definitely. So, Martha, if someone needs to talk this through, maybe they have a situation that's come up and they're potentially dealing with this, or they just want more information, they want to link arms with you to help bring awareness, whatever the case, how can any of us get in touch with you?
Sure. My email address is info@marthavandam.com. So that's simple for that. Anybody can get in touch with me there. Also, if they would go on ibcnetwork.org, they will find there is an organization out there for women who are dealing with this cancer. And the woman who heads that organization, her name is Terry Lynn Arnold. She's been working that organization for, I don't know how many years. I'm guessing 13, 14, but I may be completely off base. But tons of information there. And she has all kinds of contacts as well with places like MD Anderson, Duke, Dana-Farber, with doctoral level people who can talk over things like symptoms and treatments. And this is what my doctor is suggesting. Does this go along with MD Anderson's protocol? She has all kinds of contacts that can give fabulous information.
One thing I want to, yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to just kind of loop back on is you mentioned the surgeon saying, you should absolutely do the reconstruction piece while on the table, and you felt like, you really had to fight for your life, honestly, is what I hear.
Yeah.
But fight the person that was supposed to help save your life.
Right.
And the response was, it is absolutely mind-blowing that, we are women, not because of, I don't really know how to say this in the most, I guess, politically correct way, but we are women. We were born as women.
Yes.
And we should not be diminished because of breasts.
Right.
That's not what makes us a woman.
No.
And so to put the idea of how you look above, absolutely above your health, excuse me, is absolutely mind-blowing to me. But the even to take it even further is that this was another woman that said it to a woman.
Right.
So much in there, just so much in that one conversation. Just absolutely, do not be bullied into appearance at the risk of your own life because of someone else's inadequate knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Terry Arnold that I mentioned with IBCnetwork.org, she has created a medical, where the classes that the doctors have, continuing education. She's created a continuing education course that is specifically for teaching about inflammatory breast cancer, and it's free and it's out there for any physician to take it. Her point is to try to get physicians to have this course just so that they have some understanding. I have been in touch with her about my surgeon, and she said she would get in touch with that hospital and try to make contact with her and see if she couldn't get out there to teach that course, because clearly they didn't have the knowledge they need. I don't think she, in her mind, I don't think she was trying to choose my beauty over my health. I don't think I really hope, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt that she didn't realize that was a protocol that could create a difference in my life. I will say, not long after I had my surgery from her, I met someone else who had the exact same surgery from her. It was this young woman who was, I think, about 24, 26, and she was convinced to go ahead and do the reconstruction on the table. As far as I know, she's still fine, but I kept thinking she wasn't young. She was young. She wasn't old enough to feel like, wait a minute, I don't have to do what you say. I can think for myself. And she did get talked into it. And I will admit, it is hard to walk away from breast surgery and have an amputation and not have that breast. I will admit that is incredibly difficult. But like you said, it's a life or death thing, not a how pretty are you thing.
Yeah, and by no means am I, I'm not talking bad about the surgeon, but it is the ignorance of it all.
It is.
You've got to be able to be, we're trusting you. We are entrusting our lives with you.
Mm-hmm.
So there is additional information that you need to have, but to speak up like that, and I mean, that just, I appreciate what you're saying, Martha, but I just believe, and especially if she's convinced someone or whomever on her team is convinced someone else of the same exact thing, that to me, that is just, got to do better.
Got to do better. Exactly. We got to do better. That's exactly it. And as far as sticking together as women, I think that's a place we can do better too. And that's what you're doing. You're getting that word out to women so we can do better.
Absolutely. Well, Martha, thank you so very much for being on the show today. I absolutely appreciate this. And thank you so much for the fight that you are bringing to the world on behalf of women, the information, the knowledge that you're bringing. So are there any last words of wisdom that you want to leave with everyone?
Yes. And that is that, and you heard this when your dad got the diagnosis, and you thought about it when you were waiting on the results for yours, but getting that diagnosis of cancer, it's just quite terrifying. And so what I want to say is there is life. There can be life after cancer, really awesome life after cancer. It doesn't have to steal your joy. It doesn't have to steal your fire. It doesn't have to steal your pleasure in life. And
wow.
That's what I would say. I think we're also scared of it. And another piece is that breast cancer, all breast cancer treatments, they've come so far that there's just so much more hope than there ever used to be. So I've known of women who would say, I just don't even want to go and find out, because then it's going to be really bad and I'm going to die anyway. And they'll go down that path. And it's just not that way anymore. Cancer is treated so entirely differently. Even when you end up with a stage 4 type cancer, it may mean they're never going to get rid of it, but you may have it for deal with it along the way for 20 years and have a good life. So don't let it drag you to the point of you think, oh, there's no hope, it's over now, because that's just not true.
Very good words of wisdom. Absolutely good words of wisdom. So Martha, thank you so much for joining the show today. Again, you all will see Martha again, because she is absolutely a wealth of knowledge, honestly, and her desire to encourage, to really inform. You can feel it. It oozes out of her, and that is absolutely what we need in this day and time. Women, doesn't matter what age, we are. It doesn't matter what color we are. It doesn't matter what economic background we come from. Doesn't matter what, education, knowledge we have. It linking arms is what really truly matters. And so, Martha, thank you again for joining the show. Folks, this has been another great episode of Go Be Great with Coach Karina. And I am absolutely positive that you have gained some insight, some fresh information that will absolutely help you to go be great. So I will see you all on the flip side. Bye, everybody.